So, is power evil? Today I'm going to talk to you about a book by a guy called Jeffrey Pfeffer called 7 Rules for Power, surprising but true advice on how to get things done and advance your career. So, who is Jeffrey Pfeffer? He is a university professor and a business theorist. He teaches organizational politics at Stanford University in America. He served on many company boards in many roles, and he writes for Fortune magazine. So he's considered quite an expert when it comes to power dynamics and stuff like that. So we're going to review his main argument, his 7 rules that he says are for power, criticisms of the book, and conclusion. So his main argument has a few key points. The first is power is not evil, it's a skill for getting things done. So a lot of people have quite a negative connotation for power. But he says if you moralize it like that, that doesn't make power itself disappear. He actually says that the use of power defines its ethics. So that if you want more good power, you have to teach the science of it to more good people and have them use it rather than just have bad people using it. He also says that power involves what he calls political skill, which is understanding others to influence outcomes, which makes sense to me, right? If you know how people work, you know what they need, you're going to be able to get stuff done because we get stuff done through people. And he says good work needs visibility and association, i.e. with you. So there's no point in being the person who does really good work and nobody knows about it. You're just quietly in the corner. You need to know, people need to know that you're the one that did that good work, and they need to associate it with you. And he says that most people's power block, if you like, is that they're uncomfortable with it. So they might have issues with being disliked, with self-advocacy, or taking strategic action, and that's the thing that holds them back. Okay. So rule number 1, get out of your own way. This is all about self-limitation, basically. Competent people get ruined by bad habits and unhelpful stories they have about themselves. So I think of British culture, for example. We don't like self-advocacy. We don't like, talking about we don't like celebrating ourselves. We think we associate it with bragging and with being arrogant. But as Pfeffer points out, if you don't, then you're expecting other people to do that for you. And actually, what a lot of people will do, they will talk about themselves negatively. I definitely did this. For a long time, I felt not good enough, and that I had a real big fear of failure. So it stopped me trying things. Or B, it meant if I did try things, I wouldn't stick at it very long, and then I'd wonder why I was rubbish at it. So it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So action you can take for this rule is audit how you show up. How do you talk about yourself to other people? Do you put yourself down a lot? Are you overly modest? Do you apologize a lot for your existence or things that you've done? Or a British thing is I'm really sorry to bother you. And he says, stop doing that. Do you speak up and give your opinion amongst people, or do you stay quiet? And do you celebrate your successes? So rule number 2, my favorite one, break the rules. Yay. Powerful people, they bend the rules and they get more done as a result. All rules are made up. They're made up by people. Okay, that's not to say they're not real as such, they have consequences, but they are made up. And they tend to have been made up by people who were in power at some point. And if they keep those rules, they tend to benefit the people who are in power. We see this in the UK government, right? The new party gets in and they spend half their time reversing all the laws that the last government put in because they don't like them, right? So he talks about how testing the rules is really the only way you know if they're real. A lot of people have, I know I did growing up, I had issues about upsetting people and being told I was wrong and all that stuff. So if there was a rule, it's I've got to stick to it. But that's just my stuff. If you actually test some of these rules, you find out they're not as real as people will make out they are. He says we should ask for forgiveness rather than permission. So a lot of organizations will say, you need to follow the process, but what they actually want is they want people to deliver results. However, I would suggest don't do this with your boss. Or at least if you're going to do it with your boss. I found out this the hard way. Make sure you know what your boss thinks is important as a rule and what they don't. So I found this within the NHS, loads of bureaucracy in the NHS. And when I was there, I started to just get creative on solving problems because some of the rules seemed bonkers to me, talking to different departments, and I found other ways around of doing things. Did I annoy some people? Yes. Was I effective? Yes. So action for this rule, redesign the game. Which rules are getting in your way? And if so, have you actually tested them? Have you tried experimenting with how real they are? So rule number 3, appear powerful. So we infer someone's power through observing them. We're very good. I've talked to you guys before about status and about how like status can show up within interactions and within groups and how you can play with that. We're very good at noticing that unconsciously. So we infer stuff like power through voice, body language, composure and posture, dress and emotional reactions. So for example, someone who gets really anxious and they're worried about stuff, we will see them, or they get really, really angry and they get really, we will see someone who's calmer, we will see them as higher status. If you ever watch people argue on YouTube videos or whatever, the person who's getting irate in someone's face and the person who's calmly just talking to them, we see the calmer person as higher status generally. He also says how certainty infers power. So if you get someone that hedges a lot, if they're like, well, we could sort of maybe kind of do this, it might work, versus someone who says, no, this is what I think and this is what we should do, we will favour the person who's got certainty. We see them as more confident. And he actually says like confidence leads before competence. You can't have one without the other, because that's why after a while you can have someone really confident and then you realise, hang on a minute, they're a bit of a charlatan or they're full of hot air. But we will trust the confident person over the competent person first. So action you can take for this rule, again, self-audit and model powerful people. Watch powerful people and see what they do differently. Do you speak with certainty or do you hedge a lot with a lot of sort of kind of maybe, I'm not sure? Do you stay calm and do you speak slowly? Or do you rush to get the words out just in case somebody is going to, like, that kind of thing? And do you dress and groom high status? So as some of you guys will remember, I had really long hair for quite a while and I only cut it a couple of years ago. I've done this twice in my life, grown my hair really obscenely long and then I've cut it. Both times massively changed the way that people have treated me. I think maybe it's a cultural thing. We just, in our culture, guys with long hair are not treated as higher status or as powerful. But yeah, it's a thing. Yeah, and it's all unconscious stuff that's like we picked up from, I mean, some of it could be like biological, but a lot of it's cultural. And this is why you also get rules within organizations and things. You get the rules that we say are the rules, and then you get the actual rules, which are not always explicit. So next rule is rule 4, build a powerful brand. So make sure that people know who you are and what you're about. This is really about personal branding and reputation. If people know that about you, they know who you are and what you're about, they'll remember you, they're going to put you forward for opportunities, they're going to think of you. Works with networking. This is a really big thing with networking. I always think of Dave with this, right? First time I met Dave, he introduced himself as our local insurance ninja, okay? No idea what that meant, talked to him for a bit. I realised he knows loads about insurance and he's done martial arts for 20 years, so stay out of his way or he'll kick your ass. Now, if I hear anything about insurance or martial arts, Dave comes to mind. Okay, personal branding. So Pfeffer also talks in the book about the need to shape the narrative and tell your own story. He says you can leave it to other people, but if you do that, you're kind of leaving it to chance. You should take the opportunity to tell people about yourself. He uses in the book a couple of examples of people in Silicon Valley where they started off as like partnerships or small groups of people. Then as the business has got more successful, there's been a fallout. And then the successor has just retold the story and made it as if they were the hero. And that becomes the law. That becomes the myth. People forget about the truth. So not that I'm saying you should use this in a negative way, but you can use it to your advantage.
History belongs to the victor.
History belongs to the victor, exactly.
I love that, right? It's true.
It's true, right? You write the history books. Yeah. Okay, so action for this rule. How are you brand building? What are you known for? What attention are you getting? And where do you put yourself out there? You know, is that through conversations with people? Is it networking? Is it through social media? Is it through blogs? Rule number 5, network relentlessly. So success is created through relationships, opportunities come through other people, and relationships are how things get done. That he talks about how this idea of being self-made is rubbish. I think about Oscars acceptance speeches, right? Anybody who accepts a speech, anybody who accepts an award at the Oscars, they always spend half their speech thanking everybody. It's because they don't do it on their own. Okay, that's why I think effective networking works well, because stuff gets done through other people.
You need to send this to my boss.
Dave, when you were talking about that earlier, about what I was thinking in my head is he doesn't get this. I mean, I've honestly, not to make this all about you, Dave, as much as I love you, but like the difference in you and what you've explained about the success of your role over the last year, to me, has been a direct result of the way you've shown up differently and you started networking. And
Yeah.
personally, I think it's short-sighted that that's not being seen. But anyway, so he says networking basically increases your chance for luck. This is an obvious thing because it's a numbers game, right? The more people you know, the more likely people are going to remember you, and they're going to call you for an opportunity, or they're going to mention you to someone else. He also talks about the necessity for what he calls weak ties. So briefly, if you've got a lot of close ties, you're more likely to know the same people and you're going to know the same stuff. If you've got weak ties, people that you don't know so well, they're more likely to know more people you don't know and know more stuff you don't know. Okay, so he talks about the necessity to also nurture all relationships, especially those ones. Find reasons to interact and follow up. I think that the modern way of doing that is we send reels and memes to people, right, that we know, because it's a way of saying, hey, I saw this and I thought of you. Also reciprocity and asking for things, like doing bold asks. So the reciprocity principle, if you like, if we offer help to somebody, we'll feel the need to help us back. I think it's why the Hare Krishnas, like, they'll give you a free flower and then they ask you to donate, because you feel you have to. Not being afraid to ask for things. He's very much like, ask. People are often afraid not to ask because they're afraid of being rejected or looking needy. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And often people want to help you. So action you can take for this rule: connect more and start asking. How else could you meet people? How else could you nurture the relationships you've already got? And what are you not asking for that you possibly could? Rule number 6 is use your power. So Pfeffer describes power as a use it or lose it principle. He says power is maintained through use. He talks about this thing called the barbell effect. So barbell is in terms of weightlifting. Now, the barbell effect comes from a concept called anti-fragility by a guy called Nassim Taleb. Now, briefly, we often think of fragility like fragile and resilient, right? So you've got fragile is this breaks easily with little stress. Resilient means this takes a lot of stress to break. Now, Taleb says that that's not the only continuum. There's another part to it, which is anti-fragility, which are things that get stronger with more stress and pressure. And the reason it's called the barbell effect is weightlifting. When you lift weights, the muscle breaks down and then it actually grows back bigger, right? So actually more stress, you get stronger. And conversely, if you don't use the muscles, they atrophy, which is why people who are bedbound for a while, they often have to have physio before they can walk again. He says power is the same way. If you get power, you have to use it to maintain it, and then it actually will snowball to give you more power. So on top of that, he suggests help your allies and remove your enemies. So basically, people who've helped you get power and are your supporters, you should reward them. The reciprocity principle. We've got this modern idea that everything should be really fair and equal, and he says that's kind of not true and not how people work. It's that old, if I scratch your back, you scratch mine. If your supporters help you a lot and then you're like, no, we need to treat everybody equally, they're going to be like, screw you. I'm not going to continue to help you.
It's a bit like the principle of the government, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, too much that way, you get like nepotism and stuff like that. But you also can't, he's like saying you can't go too much the other way. You've got to, to me, it's in-group, out-group stuff. You know, if people are part of your tribe, you help them more than the out-group. But he also says you don't want to do the noble thing of leaving your enemies alone. If you get to power, you should do something about them. That doesn't necessarily mean kill them off, but
yeah.
But for example, he uses the example, I can't remember the guy's name, but he talks about a politician that got a particular position in the House of Congress in America. And he said the first thing he did was take 3 of his enemies and he promoted them to the Senate. And some people are like, why are you doing that? And he was like, because now they're out of my house. They're causing trouble over there. And now I can focus on my job here. And lastly, he says, like, you need to address your fears, like I was saying before, because if you don't, they're the things that are going to hold you back from using your power. So rules for actions for this rule. Take action, use influence. Where are you avoiding action or politics? And how could you rally the troops and get more stuff done? Rule 7, success excuses almost everything. So this is based on something called outcome bias. So outcome bias says it's the results that determine how we judge an action. So we often think we judge the person's character and the action they're taking. Research shows that we don't. We actually retrospectively look at the outcome and then we rejudge if we did judge in the first place. So for example, someone who breaks the rules, we could see them, if they succeed, we could see them as visionary, whereas if they fail, we'll say they were reckless. Elon Musk is a great example of this, right? Really divisive character. You talk to his supporters, they'll be like, he's bold, he's innovative. You talk to his haters and they'll say like, he's reckless, he's, he's impulsive. He also talks about how like success breeds success. It goes back on the thing I was saying about use your power. Someone who has successes, they'll get visibility, authority, credibility. That will give them more power to take more action, and it becomes the snowball. With that, there's also worth mentioning, there's this thing called the halo effect. Basically, people who have positive attributes like success will attribute other things to them, like that they're smart, and I'm sure there are others. We do the flip side as well. People who are attractive will assume that they're successful and that they're smart. Anyway, things you can do for Rule 7. Action is be strategic, not scared. So where are you holding back? What are you waiting for? Where are you waiting for permission or approval rather than just doing it? And what would you do if you weren't afraid? So criticisms of Pfeffer. Some might say that he risks normalizing ruthlessness, that we're teaching power to the wrong people. Again, he does argue that in the book. He says, this is the science, it's up to you how you use it. Some might say that the book is short on ethics. It's very much, this is how you do it, but not how you do it ethically. He talks to this in the book. He says there's research done on ethics training, and a lot of it shows that it's kind of pointless. People might take it on board for a little bit, but then they very quickly go back to their baseline. Power is not the master key, so other things are important too, such as friendship, such as mastery, trust, virtue, character, and all of that stuff.
It's the tool, isn't it? It's how it's used.
Yeah. Now, if you ignore the human side of it and you just focus on power, you can often end up the lonely, miserable person. And I think of the paranoid king archetype, the king who always sits with his back against the wall, and he's only protected by the paid mercenaries in front of him. And it's because he doesn't trust anybody else in the kingdom because they don't trust him, because he's not a very nice person. So yeah, it can have a long-term relational cost if you don't pay attention to things like that. Also, you could say the book is very US-centric. A lot of his anecdotes are about the US corporate world. But at the same time, almost every point I think he uses, maybe every point, he backs up with social science research. So you could argue that he's just using those examples because that's from his lived experience. So, in conclusion, the world is not the fair meritocracy that we think it is. Sorry to say. But power also isn't evil. It's how you get things done. As you were saying, Dave, it's a skill. It can be learned. And more people could practice it, but they don't just because it's uncomfortable for them. Okay. And that's it. Any questions?
Just an observation on the last slide about, what was it? Success. That one, sorry, yeah.
Success, yeah.
That reminds me of one of my favourite quotes from a game that I play. It's a very dark universe and what have you. But it's success requires no explanation, but defeat allows none. So it just reminds me of that. It's one of my favorites.
Sadly, I think there's some truth to it. You know, one of the quotes in the book. Go on.
Sorry. Just an example of that is that springs to mind is Conor. I know you mentioned Elon Musk. Conor McGregor. When he was winning, I mean, he is the biggest shit talker in the game. He destroys people verbally before they even get into the cage. But everybody applauded it and was, fanatical about him whilst he was winning. Yeah. Now he's stepped away and he's lost a few fights and talks about comeback and still talks the way he talks. He's become this absolute caricature, like this almost mocked character. And that just makes you think of that.
Because he's not winning anymore. Yeah. I think I can't remember the guy, but there's a guy in the book he talks about where he says, if the ends don't justify the means, what does?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think you need to be careful taking that to the nth degree, but I think there's some scientific proof in it apparently with the outcome bias.
Absolutely true in our business as well. I've seen people and branches that fail audits and compliance is absolutely rubbish and whatever, but put the numbers in and they're absolutely fine. And people that aren't as bad that way but didn't have the same amount of success have been fired. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's how that works.
It's really common
Numbers.
with salespeople. You get the stereotypical sales person that's terrible at admin because they bring in all the business. People let them get away with it.
Absolutely true. I've seen it.
Okay, so if you want to look for more,
Use your words, David.
use your words. For more, check out the book. Further reading: Jeffrey Pfeffer, 7 Rules of Power: Surprising but True Advice on How to Get Things Done and Advance Your Career.
Very good.
Thank you
very
very
much.
That's one of my favourite ones you've done, and I love all of yours.